Time for the final level guide for Alternate Rundown 1. It feels like this rundown flew by extremely quickly compared to some of the others, but maybe that's just because I'm recording and editing all these videos so far in advance. I think this one is being recorded a full 2 weeks before I'm even going to make it public. But I did need to make sure that I was ahead of schedule, that way when Alternate Rundown 2 drops, I would be ready for it. So if you're someone who's made it this far into the rundown, congratulations to you and your entire team. There's only one last challenge for you to face before moving on to the next rundown, so let's get you that alternate R1D1 completion. Hello everyone, Professor Scaly here, and welcome to the alternate R1D1 level guide, the final one of this rundown. And just like before, I'm going to be starting off with the recommended loadout, and this one is going to look pretty familiar to some of you as it's the same loadout I've recommended for, I think, half of this rundown so far. And that would be the Bio Tracker and 3 mid to long range sentries, aka the burst sentries and or the sniper sentries. And the reason why I'm recommending it for this level is because in this level, you're going to be going through alarm door after alarm door after alarm door, and for every single one of these alarms, there really aren't any doors you can actually shut mine and C-foam. So things like the mine deploy and the C-foam launcher really aren't all that effective. As for why I want a Bio Tracker, not just simply 4 sentries, well, that's because in this level, there are going to be a fair amount of enemies, and some of these enemies are going to be scouts, so having a Bio Tracker that way we know where they are and we can tag the enemies are awake can help out quite a bit. Part of this level is going to have some dense fog in it, so Bio Tracker will help out there, of course. And at the very end of the level, you're going to have to deal with an enemy which might be new to you and your team, and this enemy cannot be shot at by sentries unless if they are tagged with a Bio Tracker. So you're definitely going to want to bring one of these with you. As for why we're going 3 burst and or sniper sentries, well, the level is pretty big. A lot of the rooms we're going to be going through are either just long corridor rooms or just really big wide open rooms, so having sentries that can just excel at dealing at the enemies from really far away before they get too close to us will make it that during these alarms we could just rely mostly on the sentries and just shoot the few things that do make it through, and that, or you could just simply have 3 people focus on the scans and 1 person who helps out the sentries a little bit by shooting with them. This person could be Bio Tracker person for Bio Tracker symbiosis, and the alarms will go incredibly smoothly for us and our team. That if we do end up waking up the rooms or waking up some scouts, we could just find a good place to hold out, plop down our sentries, and just like before, let them deal with a fair amount of the enemies and we just deal with whatever gets past them. Overall, pretty ammo efficient, and it'll make this level a whole lot easier for us to deal with. Dropping down into level, you'll see that your main objective is to find the reactor and make sure it's fully offline before you leave. So this is going to be a reactor shutdown sequence, which is quite a bit different compared to that of a reactor startup sequence like the one you did in alternate R1C1. And the reactor in this level is always going to be located inside zone 72, and you'll be starting off inside zone 68. But before we start talking about every single one of the zones, one by one, I want to give a quick overview of the entire level itself. Because when it comes to getting to the reactor, you're just heading straight north. Zone 68 through 72, you'll have to go through every single one of them. But along the way, you'll find security doors to the west and to the east that lead you into zone 73 throughout zone 78. And all of these side zones are purely optional. You do not have to go into them to complete the level, but if you do go into them, you will gain more and more resources. You don't have to deal with alarm doors to get into them, and while there are things like strikers, shooters, and giant strikers and giant shooters in those side zones, there's not so much to the point where you'll never gain a net profit of resources, unless if you and your teammates are derping like crazy and basically shooting each other over and over again, which in that case, you're memeing around and you're not really even trying to beat the level. And I know a lot of people are tempted to go into those side zones to gather those resources, but I really recommend that you don't do it, or at least don't do it until you get to the reactor itself. Because the thing is, you don't need those resources in order to complete the level, as there are plenty of resources along the main route. And when you open up those side zones, you actually open up more spawn locations for enemies for upcoming alarms, which means that upcoming alarms become more difficult as you're not going to be able to get a nice little funnel way and make it so all the enemies have to go down one route through your triple sentry loadout, which will just absolutely decimate them. So in this level guide, I truly do recommend to you, don't go into the side zones whatsoever. Just keep going straight north and keep dealing with every single alarm door one after another. Now, of course, if your team isn't playing all out well and you are desperate for resources and you need them before you deal with an upcoming alarm because you just literally don't have what you need to actually be able to survive throughout it, then yes, you can go into the side zones. Just keep in mind though that when I'm showing the map overlays for these alarm doors, I'm showing map overlays in an instance where you're not opening up those side zones, so you will have more spawn locations if you do open them up. But going into the level itself, like I said, you will be starting off inside Zone 68, and in here there will be quite a few enemies, but there will be no resources whatsoever for you to collect. Nothing like med packs, ammo packs, or tool refills, that is. So go throughout here, deal with every single one of the enemies, and we make it to the far northwestern corner of it, you'll find the security door to Zone 69. This security door, though, is going to have a Class 4 alarm tied to it, so let's take a look at a map overlay. As you can see with this map, there's only one location that enemies could possibly spawn from, and it's pretty far away from you. So what you're going to want to do is set up your sentries, sort of like you can see in the background footage. Take advantage of that long corridor room that's between you and where the enemies will be spawning from, and spread your sentries out a bit. That way they're not all just simply shooting at the same enemies over and over again and potentially wasting ammunition. And once all of your sentries are set up, go back to the security door, activate the alarm, get to work on the scans, and then just keep an eye out for any of the enemies that do make it past your sentries and get into the room with you. But deal with them, work on the scans, and once everything is taken care of, go out there, kill any enemy that's still left alive or maybe got stuck on terrain, as that actually does happen a little bit during this alarm. And once everything is dead, pack up your sentries and head into Zone 69. Inside of Zone 69, there are going to be a fair amount of resources for you and your team to use to resupply, but there are also going to be a fair amount of enemies in here, including a scout that will be patrolling one of the two rooms. And the thing is, both of the rooms inside Zone 69 are divided by an open room divider, so if you are somebody who likes to go in and shoot scouts from a distance with a sniper rifle or something, well, by all means, you can definitely do that here, but be aware that you will be pulling pretty much the entirety of the zone all at once. So if you do that, fall back and just let the enemies come to you inside Zone 68, maybe plop down your sentries if need be, and just let them come to you in a nice little funnel way. But once you dealt with all the enemies inside the zone and you've grabbed all the resources and resupplied, go to the northern end, you'll find a security door up there that leads you to Zone 70, and this security door is going to have a Class 5 alarm tied to it, so let's take a look at a map overlay. As you can see with the map, assuming you haven't opened either of the two side zones in here, there's only one location that enemies could possibly spawn from, and this makes it incredibly easy to set up for, because just like the first alarm, we're going to take advantage of that nice little corridor room in between the two main rooms, and just place our sentries apart from each other, facing towards where they'll come from, and then we just have to work on the scans. All of us will do the full team scan, and then the person with the biotracker could go near that room divider and tag enemies. That way the sentries with biotracker symbiosis will be, procced, and they'll actually be a bit more ammo efficient and fire faster. And once you finish every single one of the scans, deal with any of the enemies that are still left alive. Once they're all dead, pack up your sentries and head into Zone 70. Inside Zone 70, you're going to be in a big open room with multiple floors to it, and in here there are going to be no resources whatsoever. There is going to be a dense layer of fog down below which will hide the location of some enemies, and there are going to be two scouts that will be patrolling around here. So be very cautious when you're going throughout this room. Personally, I like to deal with the enemies that are up above on the catwalks or just outside of the fog, that way I can easily see them and see if there's something else nearby that might trigger. If I see an opportunity to deal with a scout with melee, I'll go for it. Or, sometimes my team and I like to be a little bit crazy, and as you can see in the background footage, we go gung-ho, make a mistake, and, well, every single thing is awake, including the two scouts. Which, if you find yourself in the same position, don't freak out. Just fall back into Zone 69 and defend on that bridge. Having a sentry faced in both directions will help out tremendously, because you'll be able to deal with the enemies from inside Zone 70 and the enemies from the scout wave, which are going to be spawning pretty far away from you. So deal with this entire room best as you see fit, whether it's going loud or going stealthily. And once everything is dead, like I said, there are no resources in here, so you can just go to the northern end where you find the security door to Zone 71. This door is also going to have a Class 5 alarm tied to it, so let's take a look at yet another map overlay. As you can see with this map overlay, assuming you have not opened any of the side routes in this level up to this point, enemies are going to be spawning in one location really far down to the south, and setting up for this alarm is very easy, just like the previous one. Because all you need to do is just set up your sentries either in the previous room along the bridgeway, since enemies will most of the time go across that bridge, or you could set them up in your room facing towards the open security door, or heck, you could even place them at the bottom of the room facing towards the ladder, because a lot of the enemies that get into your room are going to jump down that ladder and go for you, and just like I taught you in C2, when an enemy jumps down a ladder, it can't run away right away, so a sentry facing right towards it can put in some pretty good work. Do also keep in mind that during this alarm, the scans can go up above or down below into the fog, so biotracker person, you should be tagging enemies, that way your teammates can more easily see them and they don't get blindsided. And it's the same thing as before. Set up your sentries, activate the alarm, do all the scans. Once they're done, deal with any of the enemies that are still left alive, go out, pack up your sentries, and you can head to Zone 71. And inside Zone 71, this is going to be a long corridor connector room. There are no enemies in here whatsoever, but there will be a fair amount of resources, so feel free to grab them all and resupply. And at the back end of it, you'll find the security door to Zone 72. And for once, this is not going to be an alarm door, it is just simply a full team scan, so you can head in no problem whatsoever. And inside Zone 72, there aren't going to be any enemies, there aren't going to be any resources. It's just going to be that reactor terminal in the middle and perhaps maybe some long-range flashlights or glow sticks in the boxes and lockers spread throughout the room. So at this point, you can do one of two things. You can either deal with the reactor shutdown right now if you feel like you have enough resources to do it, or if you feel like you're a little bit low on health or ammo or anything else, you could go back to any of those previous side zone areas and go into them and actually grab the resources now, because at this point you don't have to really worry about any more alarm doors in the level except for technically one, but even then that one is not going to be affected by opening those side zones whatsoever. So you can just go on ahead, open them up, and grab any resources you need, and once you have everything you want, you can come back to zone 72, hop on that reactor terminal, and just type in reactor_shutdown. This will cause a full team scan to appear. Once you all hop into it, it will finish it, and all the lights in the level are going to go out. Then after a little bit of a delay, some text is going to appear at the top of your screen and tell you to use the reactor verification command along with the code that will give to you. But before you do this, you're going to want to set up your sentries, because putting that command in will cause a class 4 alarm to initiate. So we're going to want to place our sentries towards the southern end of the room facing down south in that long corridor room, so some on the left side and some on the right side. That way, no matter what way they take through that room to get to us, they have to go through the line of fire of the sentries. And once you have the sentries set up, you can put the command to the terminal, some text will appear on it for a little bit, and once all the text is done, the class 4 alarm will initiate. The thing is though, during this class 4 alarm, you won't be dealing with regular strikers and shooters, or even giant strikers or hybrids. You're going to be dealing with nothing but shadow strikers, which if this is your first time seeing them, this might be a little bit challenging. Because the thing is, shadow strikers are very similar to regular strikers. They're just a little bit slower, it's harder to see them, and your sentries will not shoot at them unless they're tagged with the biotracker. So while you're working on this alarm, I recommend that the 3 people who don't have the biotracker focus on the scans mostly, but the person with the biotracker stay near the entrance to your room, and once you see enemies getting a little bit close on the biotracker, tag them, that way the sentry starts shooting at them, and then you help the sentries out too. Because biotracker tags on regular shadow strikers do not last all that long. So if you only tag and then you hope your sentries will deal with everything, you will be sorely mistaken. So help out a bit, shoot, and if you need to, fall back if you get overwhelmed and just let your teammates know there are lost shadows in the room and you will ping them whenever it is that you can. But focus on the scans, deal with the shadows as they come to you, and once you finish all 4 sets of scans, you could deal with any of the shadows that are right there in your face, but once they're all dead, grab your sentries and start running. Because shortly after you finish the scan, there is going to be an extraction alarm that initiates that spawns in nothing but shadow strikers. So you're going to want to book it all the way back to the beginning of the level, and I recommend that while you're going through zone 71, the long corridor room, hug the left or the right side or zigzag a little bit and do your best not to get hit. If you're really low in health, you could just simply shoot your way out, but if you have even at least 30 or 40%, just run straight through them. If you get hit a little bit here or there, it's not that big of a deal. You're faster than them, so you should be able to outrun them and just get back into the other zones. Just keep making your way south, make sure you know the path in advance so you don't get lost. And once you make it all the way back to zone 68, you just hop into the extraction scan, and this extraction scan is fairly quick, so you hold out in it for just a little bit, and once you get the scan up to 100%, you are done and you have beaten alternate R1D1. And that's all there really is to it. Alternate R1D1 is the final level of the rundown. While it's not all that difficult once you know what you're doing, it is quite the nice level for first-timers. It gives you multiple opportunities to gather some extra resources, but in doing so you risk facing the wrath of even more enemies, and you could potentially make upcoming alarms a bit more complicated to set up for. I always do like these type of levels where there's a risk versus reward factor, and I actually have to consider my next move instead of just simply blindly walking forward. And of course, that shadow introduction at the end is definitely a nice little treat for people who have never seen them before. As always though, thank you for watching this video all the way to the very end. I do hope that it was able to provide you with some assistance in beating this level. If you have any tips or tricks for this level that you want to share, any questions for me, or you just have something in general that you want to say, please do let me know down in the comments. Hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more from me, and if you want to join the community I'm building, there's a link to my Discord down in the description as well as some other links. Among those links being one that will take you to the official GTFO merch store, which I highly recommend you check out if you're a fellow GTFO enthusiast. Until next time, the wait for Alternate Rundown 2 continues. I pray that by the time this video is released, we finally have some news about it. And hopefully, I'll see you all in the next video.